We offer customized, flexible nutritional counseling designed specifically for you. We work with diverse clientele of all different ages, different needs, and goals. Whether you are looking for fat loss, muscle gain, body composition shifts, improved health, performance, and endurance, we're here to help.
All right. Serious and Cylinders Bodybuilding has MD's own Giles Thomas. What's up, Giles? What's happening?
I'm doing really well, mate. Yeah, my first time. It's our first time actually speaking, is it? Because I've seen you, like I said, even before you did that show for MD, started the show for MD. I knew you were, I kind of seen you a couple of times, but this is our first proper time we've ever spoken to each other. So nice to meet you, John.
Thank you very much, and nice to meet you too. What was happening with we were talking before off camera, and I had a variety show, and I was doing all things that I would be interested in and what guys would be interested in it. And then I just decided that it was time to make all my channels one-dimensional. So I broke up and I started my own bodybuilding channel, and it's hardcore bodybuilding, just that, nothing else. So you are one of the, you're not one of the first interviews, but you're one of the newer ones for the new year, if that makes sense.
Cool.
And I appreciate it. Because it has helped that the MD picked me up, and now we're like MD family.
Yeah. There's a growing family as well.
Yeah.
I managed to bring Miguel on last year because I saw what was going on in Brazil last year, and I was just like, guys, I said to Steve and the team, I said, look, we need to jump on this. I said, and this guy, I said, you just got to see this guy. He's got the following of some bodybuilders. I said, he's got his own fan base. I said, and I really like the guy. I think he kind of has our same kind of ethos of how we do the media, and we don't clickbait bullshit, and we don't sort of use the athletes. We kind of talk to them and promote them. Right. And I said, I feel like he could be a good member of the team. So we brought him on, and then obviously you guys came on as well. And like I said, it's a growing family, and I got to give credit to Jen as well, because she's really. I was thinking about this the other day. She's really. Like, I think about where we were a couple of years ago with content. I mean, I had Global since November 2018, Global Muscle. And it's just steadily we're covering almost every demographic now. We're doing.
She's great. She goes out of her way to help you too. Yeah. She's great. She really is.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. She's like the backbone of MD, if you will. She gets everything done.
She works hard, man. She works hard.
So I just want to I want to see if your story and my story are a little the same. I have a feeling, I know we never talked, but I have a feeling your story and my story as far as we got on MD and involved in bodybuilding is probably very similar. So okay. I want you to, start from the beginning of how you got into bodybuilding and how you got to be on MD.
Okay. Well, there's a long road, because I started following the sport when I was 13. I bought issue 96 of Muscle Mag. I bought April edition of Muscle and Fitness back in 1990, so I wasn't even 14 years old. Started pretty much weight training around that time. And then I started shooting shows when I was about 16, so like 1992. I'm 46 now.
What do you mean shooting shows?
And then I went in fact, I'll show you a picture I took when I was 17. Hang on.
Okay.
Like, I actually printed this myself at college. But
okay.
Can you see who that is?
I could see me. Yeah, it looks like Paul Dillette. Am I right? It looks like
no, that's Flex Wheeler, Charles Claremont, Kevin Navrone, Sonny Schmidt, and you got Milos all the way. But I took this one out.
Okay.
I took this at the 1993 British Grand Prix, and I was 17.
Oh, okay.
Printed it myself at college. Anyway, so I started, doing that, and then when I was 18, I went to the British Grand Prix because I always used to go to the hotel because I knew when the athletes would be arriving, like Dorian and Kevin, all that lot, and Paul Dillette, guys you mentioned, Flex Wheeler. So I had a black and white picture I'd taken of Dorian guest posing at 290 before he ripped the bicep in '94. It was February, down in Devon in February 1994. Me and my friend and girlfriend went to see him in seminar. It was packed out. It was incredible. He blew my mind when he came out. And I took a really nice shot of him. So I printed it in college. And I thought, when I'm at the Grand Prix, I'm going to see if I can, because I'll try and catch them at the hotel. So I got it, I printed it, I framed it, and I wanted to give it to him. So anyway, the day after the show, I was hanging around the hotel, and I ended up hanging around with Kevin Navroni, sorry, he tells me off for that. And I was just chatting away to him, you know, being kind of reeling off my bodybuilding, you know, because I'm still a bodybuilding fanatical fan, you know.
Right.
And then Peter McGough walks over and he says, Peter, he says, man, he said, this kid should have your job. He says he knows more about bodybuilding than you are. And of course, Peter just laughed. Peter just laughed. He went, oh yeah, okay, like whatever. Because I was in my baggies and my bloody padded shirt. I looked a complete idiot probably. But Kevin, you know, really took the time to spend some time with me. And I showed him the picture I had of Dorian, and he went, wow. And then after a couple of hours, he says, man, he says, you know, you've got, you know, you should start reaching out to magazines and writing for them and for photographing. And I was like, he said, you clearly got a passion for the photography and you love photographing bodybuilders. And obviously the magazines were huge at that time.
Yeah, that's right.
And, yeah. So basically, anyway, so I came home full of enthusiasm. And of course, my hero, like, because he was my favorite bodybuilder, still my all-time favorite bodybuilder. And I kind of there was a NABA, like a photographer in a magazine, a well-known magazine editor from the 70s and 80s. He died now. He died a couple of years ago in his 80s. Like a NABA photographer, real history in the sport, right back to all the physical culture, and you know, he knew all the Reg Park in those kind of days, Steve Reeves. And so I basically showed him some pictures, and he says, well, come over to my house, he said, and you know, and I'll kind of see if I can mentor you a little bit and help you along the way, you know, because I said, Kevin Navroni thinks I should start writing for magazines and everything. And I was like, so I went over to his house and had some lunch and everything. And basically, cut a long story short, he kind of reached out to all the British magazines. I think there was like 4 or 5 at the time. Like the British edition of Muscle Mag, and then you had Flex magazine and these British ones, Muscle News, Bodybuilder Monthly, Body Power magazine. There was loads, and he reached out to all the editors and he said, "Look, I've got this young kid here, and he's mad crazy about bodybuilding. He's because I was doing art, English, and photography in school and college, so I was kind of I was trying to get prolific." And anyway, so I did. I started, they all gave me a chance. And when I was 19, I had my first article published of a Welsh bodybuilder called Tony Barnbrick. In fact, I spoke to Tony today because we're going to see Metallica in Five Finger Death Punch.
Cool.
In Amsterdam in April. So we just bought the tickets today. So I'm still in contact with him. And basically I started in 1995. The magazines newspapers, magazines, they started sending me to like the European shows. I went to Paris, Spain and Vienna, Austria and Italy. They were sending me to do the photographs and the report, because then they didn't have to send 2 people. They'd send me, and also I'd get a lot of content out, you know? So they were like, oh, look, send this kid and, you know, bung him a few quid and he'll come back with a ton of content. So that was when I was 19. That was in 1995. In 2002, I started my own website called UK Muscle, which was like MD. It was like a forum, and it got really, I think we had about 11,000 members, and it was busy. It was a really busy forum. Yeah, it was all right. It was good. You know, it was when forums were exploding. You know? In fact, when I was at the 2002 Olympia, Chad Nichols, he'd only been up a few months. He'd only been up since the May. And what was the Olympia, like September, October? Chad Nichols came up to me. He says, man, I love your website. He said,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. He said, man, I love it. He says, you're doing a great job with that. I was like, wow, okay, well, we're really getting somewhere with this. So, and in 99, I started working into supplement industry. So I was working for Dorian Yates, because he was a partner in Metrex in the UK distribution.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, and they had a newspaper as well. And because I knew that to feed my bodybuilding magazine habit, you know, which was like an addiction, I knew I had to support it with something else. So the supplement thing seemed to go hand in hand. And Metrics that I was working for had the main bodybuilding like newspaper magazine. So I moved to London and kind of started working for them. So basically I was working my way up, and I was just, because I've always loved it. I mean, my office is just apart from comics, it's full of bodybuilding. You know, all my house is full of, you know, like photographs I've taken from.
Me too. Yeah, I got all that crap behind me too.
Yeah. obviously there's a wall of me as well from when I was competing.
Oh yeah, tell me about your. Okay, no, finish when you got to MD, and then we'll talk about your competition day.
Yeah. So so that was so basically I started. I left because I went into the supplement industry and I did really, really well. I designed some kind of best-selling products. I designed an energy drink called Rocket Fuel that kind of took us from a small local company to export into 28 different countries, and we got yeah, thank you. I got turnover up into the millions, and it was that one kind of magic product that kind of just completely exploded. It kind of stopped us from dying, really. It just and the company just snowballed. So I was doing really well at that. I was running my website. You know, I was training with John Citrone, this bodybuilding legend, my boss, you know, and I was loving it. Living up in Newcastle, in like probably it's really the party capital of the world, really. You know, and I was making loads of money, and I was in my early 20s. I mean, he put me in this house with he says, "Oh, I'll put you in one of my old houses." He said, "It's fine, 6-bedroom house, indoor swimming pool."
Oh man.
You know,
so no, we have no similarities actually.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, I'm trying to condense it down because I've done this just such a packed timeline with so many different elements, you know. So, but to answer your question, so and then I got around about 2008, I decided I wanted to go back into the bodybuilding media. So I started. I got an opportunity to work for a European magazine based in Spain. Called Body Fitness Magazine. It was very much like Muscle Mag. They also distributed Muscle Mag, so there was a lot of the kind of that same sort of content. So I started doing a column for them, and then within a few months, I was doing like 20 pages of content for them, photo shoots, interviews, show reports. You know, the gossip column was up to like 9 pages. Half of it was complete bullshit because it was just nonsense. People just loved the humor, you know, because I you know, I was just so I basically went from UK to like European. Then I started doing bits for Muscle Mag. Like, do you remember? Do you remember the emergence of Zach Khan? Remember that when that kind of kicked off?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, it was that. In fact, I've got the magazine. I've got the magazine here, where I said to Zach, I said, "Look, Zach," I said, "we've really got to get you publicity. We've got to get you a good coach." I said, "because you're missing the mark at the British finals purely because of your condition." I said, "You should be in the top 6 Olympia, mate." I said, "You've got the size to be one of the best."
Yeah.
So I hooked him up with Neil Hill.
Oh, and wow.
So I hooked him up with Neil Hill. And Neil said, "Look," he said, so I kind of introduced them. And Neil said, "Look, if I get on well with him, I'll work with him. I'll get him his pro cards, you know, and I'll get him in the shape of his life," which is exactly what happened in 2009 when he won the British finals. And I got him in Muscle Mag. I went to Robert Kennedy, remember Bob Kennedy? And he says, "Oh man, we love the freaks." And back then, he said all the magazines were trying to be the first to get the new stars because, you know, like Peter McGough's career kind of catapulted because he was literally attached to Dorian. So when Dorian kind of exploded, so did Peter McGough's career, which then got him, you know, editor of Flex and everything else. So it was kind of a bit like that, really. So I got him on the front cover of Muscle Mag, a small picture. Nutrex got hold of him. Weeder Publishing got hold of him. And his life changed overnight. Won the British, got his pro card. Then, of course, he had the accident. But
that's right, with his leg, right?
Yeah, both of them. He snapped it.
Yeah.
In fact, he rang me when that happened, just after it happened, because I spoke to him that morning and I was driving. I answered my phone. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, he was never the same after that. That's right. It was sad, but oh man, I remember that. Yeah, I remember reading an article about how he was squatting. Was he squatting 700 or something like that, right?
He was hack squatting 7 plates. It was 7 plates,
yeah.
I think it was.
Yeah.
But he hadn't trained for a month. And I think he was just raring to get back into the gym. He was just, you know, so I think he torn his hamstring or something. So he hadn't been able to train for a month. So first workout back. And he said, "Giles, I used to do that for 15 reps. He said it wasn't heavy."
Yeah.
So anyway, he rang me and he said, "Giles, bro, you never guess what I've done." I says, "What?" And he says, "I've just torn both my quads. That's my career over." And I says, "No." I says, you sound too calm." And he went, "Well, the pain hasn't hit me yet. I'm in shock." He said, "But I'm here on the floor and I can't move." And he said, "The paramedics thing are coming. I'm like over 300 pounds at the moment." So anyway, so I started doing stuff for Muscle Mag. I was getting bits of work through Chris Gethin for bodybuilding.com. I was covering the Arnolds, the Olympias. So basically I went to European, and I was basically like, I was really, really busy. And then what I was doing, I was getting the PDFs of all my articles for Body Fitness magazine, and I was putting them onto MD Forum. knowing that that was kind of the place to be seen, you know, and I knew that would get the attention, you know, because thing is, I was helping with the layouts, I was doing the photographs, I was doing the articles, you know, and they were beautifully laid out. It was a really good magazine. And then apparently this was around the time that Roelie Winkler, you know, obviously in Holland, was starting to emerge, and all the magazines were clambering over him, trying to sort of like, who is this new guy? But basically, there was a lot of new talent exploding from Europe.
That's right.
You know, because after Dorian, there wasn't really much going on. There was guys coming over to the Night of Champions and the Arnold, and they were getting annihilated, you know.
Yeah.
So, and then of course the talent was starting to come out. So Steve Blackman said to Sean Ray and Ron, he said, look, on a conference call, he said, look, he says, we need somebody over in Europe that really knows, you know, he's got his ear to the ground, that can kind of, so we can be the first to have these guys. Do you know anyone? And I've been friends with Ron for about five years at that point. I emailed him because I was a fan of his in 2005. And I said, hi, I said, I'm a big fan of yours. And he emailed me back straight away. And he said, I said, the best way to describe myself is I'm like a British Ron Harris. And he said, well, the best way you can describe me is I'm like an American Giles Thomas.
Very cool, man.
So, yeah. So anyway, both Sean Ray and Ron said, Giles, there's a guy called Giles Thomas. You know, he's on the forum. He's busy. He posts a lot. He's on there every day. You know, maybe we should approach him. So I checked there was a DM on the inbox on the forum, and it was Steve Blackman. And he said, Giles, how would you like to start a column called Euro Muscle Scene? This was 2010. And I said, well, yeah, of course I would. You know, it's either MD or Flex. That's for me.
That's right.
That was the end game, you know, the end goal. And
yeah, back then, absolutely, those the two biggest, right? Yeah, no question. Yeah,
because I'd already done Muscle Mag, I was doing all the other ones, I was doing bits and bobs for everyone, but that was like the end. That was the ultimate goal for me. Either one of those, I'd be happy with. And I've been knocked back so many times from Flex magazine. So anyway, they came to me. So I started doing the Euro Muscle Scene. 2011, they sent me to Rotterdam to do my first video assignment for Roelie. They said they sent me a camcorder and a microphone, and I said, right, go over there and get as much content as you can. We had tapes then. So I came back with a ton of content. I didn't know whether it was any good or not, and they went, "Oh my God, this is brilliant! You know, we've sent one guy on one trip, and you come back with an absolute, you know, ton of content. You know, it's like, you know, because obviously I've got a bit of a wide skill set, you know, because I can do, you know, I actually went to Rotterdam the year before. I paid my own way when I started my column, and I just did photos of Roelie. I took some really nice photographs of him training. So that was it. So it was 2010. MD actually let me go in 2013.
Really?
Yeah, they let me go in 2013. And then within 2 weeks, I was in the Flex European magazine offices with Martin Chaffetz, the American director guy, Sam Lund, John Plummer, and they basically said, look, we want you to do you know, a column for us. And because the thing is with MD, I was trying to do separate articles, not as well as my column, and they wouldn't take them. So Flex magazine, they said yes to every single article idea that I put to them. So I did William Bonac, I did was it Flex Lewis? Yeah, I did Flex Lewis. I did a load of them, but every idea I was putting to them, they were saying yes to, and they were happy with it. So it worked out great. So I was with them for 2 years, and then obviously all happened with AMI, and I started making cuts and all this, and they were obviously trying to shut down the offices and run everything from America. So that was basically what happened. And then I was just doing bits of stuff for Flex magazine, and then I was at the 27 Tampa. And Ron says, oh, I don't get in till tomorrow. He says, our video guy's there. Can you do some interviews? And I says, yeah, go on then. Go on. You know, I said, you know, I don't mind. So I did that, did a few interviews with Max Charles, Josh Lenartowicz, Lisa Cross, a few of them. And then basically Sean Ray left MD right before the 2017 Olympia to work for Generation Iron. And they needed someone to help Ron cover the Olympia. So they asked me, and I said, "Yeah, of course, go on then."
Yeah. So
but then basically I started back with MD. I think what year was it? 2020. I started my new column. I think it was a couple of years later. But they just had me covering shows all over Europe and all the pro shows because they knew they'd get photographs, interviews, wrap-ups, live stuff, the forum, and a ton of video content. So yeah, so it's and now I've got Global Muscle, which is my baby, and I love it.
That's fantastic, man.
Thank you. And I've got my studio in the house, and I love it, mate. I mean, I'm really, I kind of like 28 years it's taken to get to this point, mate. And, you think about some of the knockbacks you have that people maybe don't know about, but it's just that kind of attitude of like, I am not giving up on this. I can't.
That's right.
You become a slave to your passions, and something compels you.
Yeah.
Something compels you to do it. And even when you think this isn't working for me, why am I putting all this time in it? But something keeps you going, and then something pays off, and it just all comes together. So that's where I am right now. So to answer your question,
I'm actually glad you said that, because I actually have this podcast series, Sunday Bodybuilding, and my catchphrase is, I'm not going to stop until I have a booth at the Olympia with large-breasted women and Hell's Angels as security. That's
a pretty good goal to have, mate.
Yeah. So we have we have a little bit in common. The first thing is, I've been a fan of bodybuilding since I'm 14 years old, just like you. But my favorite bodybuilder was always Sean Ray, because I'm not very tall. I'm like maybe 5'8", tops 5'7", 5'8", like in between there.
Mine was Sean Ray the first, and then when Kevin Navarone won the nationals, it was always Sean and Kevin. Those were my two favorites, all two favorites. I was obsessed with them.
Yeah, no, and Sean became my favorite because there's this famous picture of him. I actually found it. I put it on my Instagram. There's this famous picture of him with no shirt on. Early Sean Ray, when he had the flat top and he was leaning up against this Ferrari.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I was like, and of course I was like 14 or 15. I was like, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be like that. And of course, neither came to fruition, the body or the Ferrari. Nothing. Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But he was my favorite growing up. And then what happened was basically, this happened twice, believe it or not, where I went into a gym and I was young. And somebody said, hey, you should compete. You got a pretty good physique. And then I'm just going to be honest, because this is my platform, not MD. So what happened was I did the contest. It was Mr. Staten Island, right? It was 1999. I did the contest and I won. I won the middleweight class, right? But then what happens is, and I think this is true, and you could tell me if you disagree or agree. From the outside looking in, bodybuilding seems like just amazing, with these amazing, bigger than life superstars, and this they have these tremendous, like, healthy lifestyle and so on and so forth. But then you pull back the layers a little bit, and some of them are really good dudes, and some of them are pricks. Most of them are pricks. It's very selfish, self-centered. There's a lot of we actually did a show on this on MD. There's a lot of drugs that and the people, you really have to kind of watch yourself, because there's a lot of people that are out for themselves, and I didn't like it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm not going to make a living like this, So I pulled back and I kind of got away from the scene, got a career, met my wife, and then what happened was I was living in New York. I moved to Staten Island. And I moved to Jersey, sorry. I was always a fan, and I was always working out. I always followed it. I was always working out. Then I went to another gym, and the guy says, it was actually Guy Del Corso. I don't know if you ever met him. He works behind stage. He's always, I forgot what you call it, but he's always behind stage and at the Olympia.
Expediter.
What happened?
Expediter, is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's it. He's an expediter. Yeah. And he does it for the Olympia, does it for a lot of pro shows. He's always all over the NPC. But anyway, I went to his gym, and he goes, you know what? You should compete. You got a pretty good physique. And then I got, and I got pulled into it again. And I did that. By this point, I was 35, and I did a couple of master shows, and I won. And the same thing, you pull back the layers. It's like nothing changes. But then I just can't give it up. And then I was like, I am in the back of my head. I'm like, but if I start a podcast YouTube channel, I can still have my finger on the pulse, and at the same time keep myself at an arm's distance. But it's just, now that you're older, you're not you're not influenced easily like when you're a kid. you know, so things could happen and whatever. And I, you know, it's not for me. And I remember like when I was going to do a national level show and I went to a trainer, you know, I won't say his name, but I went to a trainer and he said, you know, you should really start using this, this, and this. And by this point I was like, you know, 35 and I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. So I'm not competing anymore. That was it.
You were natural when you competed?
No. What there was a line I had in my head. I wasn't going to do things like insulin. I wasn't going to do these crazy diuretics. And then when he recommended the insulin and the Bumex and stuff like that, I was like, I'm not doing it. Forget it. It's over. You know, and I just pulled myself out. But the podcast, and I've always been a fan, and I can't get away from it, you know. But and then basically I was just a shitty bodybuilder, really. That was really it. I had a nice physique, but I wasn't big enough. And this was before Classic was out, right?
Yeah.
And I no matter what you know. So things like Classic and 212 and Men's Physique really gives a lot of people an opportunity.
Yeah.
But this was before Classic. And that's basically my story. So then Ron saw one of my shows. He invited me to come on MD. And I, you know, just you are an employee of MD. I am not. I do a pro bono. And that's basically it. But this is I want to keep it about you. So how far did you take it as far as competitions?
Well, I did 14 shows. Because from the age of like 13 to 28, I was 28 when I did my first show. I mean, I was as dedicated as, like, to be honest, I've been around, you know, because I did these tours and stuff. I do the tours, and I've done a lot of different things in the industry. I think a lot of people don't realize how many different things I've done over the years. You know, so I've been very involved in all elements, you know. I always trained hard 5 days a week. I always ate 6 meals a day. I took gear from about 16 years old, you know. I mean, it took a long time and I was so dedicated. And I've been around pros that you just think, how the fuck have you built that physique? Because, you know, with your dieting and your training, and you see them, and I mean, some of them, like, well, it shocks me because I was almost too disciplined. I remember Ian Harrison telling me, he went through my diet when I was like 15, 16 years old. And he says, your diet is too strict. I mean, I kept a food diary from 15 to 18 of everything I ate.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
I mean, I was ridiculous. I was just obsessed, you know, because I thought, and I just never thought I'd be good enough to compete. I wanted to, but I just didn't think I didn't think I knew pretty early on that I didn't have the genetic, but it didn't stop me going to the gym and freaking trying as hard as I could anyway, because I loved it. You know, I was like, being a dedicated bodybuilder I didn't need a contest. I was just, that was my lifestyle. That's what I loved to do. And when I went, I just gave it everything. But like, I used to have training partners, they'd be out on the piss all weekend, you know, drinking, you know, and taking coke and everything. And then it wouldn't be, you know, and then it'd be at the gym and they'd be like smashing me in the gym. And I'm thinking, how is this possible? You know, so realize that there's levels to this, you know, and there's some that are just, they have to touch a weight and they grow. But like I said, it didn't deter me. And then, like I said, I was working for a British bodybuilding legend for a supplement company called John Citrone. He was phenomenal. He was competing the days of Arnold. I mean, he looked probably his best in his late 50s. I mean, he was competing he was winning contests right into his 60s and looking phenomenal. And he was a strong man. I mean, Arnold saw him at one of his evening whiz, and Arnold went crazy when he saw John, because John used to do the Franco Columba blowing up the hot water bottle.
Oh, yeah.
He was breaking bench press records in his garden shed when he was like,
it's a freak of nature. Yeah,
he was benching like 4 plates at 150-pound body weight in his unassisted. I mean, like, you know, kind of stuff that in the 60s that, I mean, he used to do like a strongman act and stuff. That's why he became quite famous in his area, you know. I mean, the guy was just a legend, you know, and he's a very successful guy. And I was training with him, and I remember, because our supplement company offices, because we were like sales and marketing, and we had our offices in a gym that they owned. So we had the warehouse elsewhere, you know, a few miles away. And then we had sales and marketing, me and this other guy who ended up starting his own supplement company, and he sold it for 20 million. A company called PhD. He did tremendously well. So proud of him. And then around the corner was the accounts. So anyway, we had this glass office. So we basically, all to keep ourselves amused sometimes when, you know, when it was a bit quiet and stuff with work, we'd see all these people coming in and we'd give them nicknames and we'd kind of, because we were like savage piss takers. Do you know what I mean? We were really like roasting, like Americans call roasting.
Yeah,
We just do it to pass the time, you know. We were just talking shit, you know.
I do it at work all the time.
Yeah, you know, because a lot of colorful characters come in, so we'd have all these nicknames. So anyway, there was these doormen. There's these two doormen in there, and they're like, you know, and I said, see that guy now? I said, that dickhead there. I said, he's just told me he spent £800, like $1,000 on GH. I said, he's not even changing his diet just so he can go on holiday to Ibiza in a few weeks and just look and just have some sort of abs. I said, what a fucking idiot. So anyway, as I was talking, as I was carrying on this kind of conversation, I stopped and I said, hang on a minute. I said, Jason, I'm a complete fucking hypocrite. I said, I'm taking GH, I'm taking gear, I'm taking this, I said, I'm doing exactly what I'm just ripping the shit out of this guys for, where they can't hear me, which is very cowardly anyway. It's like, really, but like, I said, really, I said, I just realized what a hypocrite I was being, taking all this gear and not competing. So I said, Jason, I've got to do it. I've got to compete. I said, I've really, really got to sort of, apply myself. So on my website, I knew once I pressed, I wrote it on my forum and said, I am competing. I knew that was it. I was committed. And thing is, like I've been writing for magazines and photographing for 9 years. And I had a very, very, I suppose I had a good name, good reputation in those 9 years. I built up a good reputation and a level of respect. But there was still that small pocket of people that turned their nose up at me because I wasn't, yes, I trained, but I wasn't a bodybuilder.
Right.
So they were like, wow, he can't critique me. And how is he critiquing so-and-so? He hasn't even competed. So that was kind of floating around my head as well.
Yeah. What's funny is that happens a lot to a lot of podcasters. I remember that was happening a lot to Louis Marco, where he was critiquing people and then people saying, you never even got on stage. But the truth of the matter is you don't really have to. I mean, how many people have played professional football and, they're on the radio saying this one sucks or that one should have did this and that one should have did that. It's with the advent of social media and magazines comes critics, and it just comes with the territory. It came later with bodybuilding because of social media, and it's kind of like very in your face. Maybe the last 10 years or so, it's been in your face, and bodybuilders have had to get used to it. But it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. And to call out a critic and saying, you've never done this, you've never done that. Well, it's not my job. I'm a critic. I work for MD. I work for so and so. It's it is what it is. And plus, it's hypocritical for the bodybuilder to say that, because what you're doing is you're getting on stage, taking off all your clothes, and say, critique me.
Yeah, but hang on. It's only when you critique them, when you're praising them.
Oh, they're fantastic people.
They don't give a fuck. They'll say, yeah, Giles knows his stuff. He's the man. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing that they'll use, or the partners will use. The girlfriends will say, what does he know? He's never compete. Right. When he say he could do with some more quads, maybe his condition needs to be sharper. But but one of my favorite writers and one of the legends, Peter McGough, Kevin Horton, photographer, is one of the greatest bodybuilder photographers of all time. He wasn't a bodybuilder. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the only time they set foot in a gym was to bloody photograph. Do you know what I mean? Or write an interview, but no one ever, because they got to such a level. But I just found, the thing is, I will be honest, us bodybuilding fans, we're snobby bastards. Let's face it. We're very, very snobby. We are very elitist. We don't, I'm very, very funny when someone new comes into the industry. I'm instantly suspicious. I'm like, who's this guy? Who does he think he is? You know what I mean? And then and then you kind of get to know them and they kind of prove themselves. But, we are very, it's unfortunate. Like, look how fickle bodybuilding fans are. I mean, I've been really campaigning for William Bonac, saying how, guys, you've not got him in your top 5 in the Arnold Classic. This guy was second last year. He should have won. He's a 2-time Arnold Classic champion. In second, he let's forget how amazing he looked at Boston last March. Are you kidding me? That's right. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's how I remember the hate towards Jay Cutler in 2008, and then he kind of. That's why I really liked what Jay did in 2009 when he came back and just
wrecked everybody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah,
unbelievable.
stomp, right. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
back.
yeah. Yeah. That kind of sucked for Branch Warren, like, because if he didn't lose the year before, Branch would have been the Mr. Olympia.
And Branch looked incredible that
Oh,
year.
it was amazing. You know, and I've said this on MD, and I've said this on my channel too. During that time between the Ronnie and Phil era, it was a down time in bodybuilding.
Hang on,
between Ronnie and Phil.
Ronnie and Phil. Yeah.
That little few, it was a down
man.
time. You had like Branch, Jay, Victor Martinez, Dexter was just starting to really, get to that point. So, and you had Dexter, and Jay was really the only mass monster at the time. But then all of a sudden, like Phil comes out, and Kai and Dennis Wolf and Sean Roden, and it blows up again. And it's kind of like what's happening now all over again, right?
Yeah,
because these guys are coming out of woodwork from all parts of the country. So I got a couple of questions for you.
Go on, mate.
Yeah.
We will go off on a lot of tangents because I think that's how my brain works, and I think that's how me and Ron do the power. We have a couple of topics, and we sometimes we go into it, and sometimes we don't even come way near it. It's just the way it goes. That's the best way to just let it flow, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. When you said you spoke to Kevin Levrone and Chad Nichols when you were younger, do you think that these guys really understand how influential they are on people like us? Because I don't think they understand. When I first started my channel, I said, growing up in New York and the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, whatever, there were four guys that in the late 90s, early 2000s that were like mystical bodybuilders, if you will, because it was like they were either close to getting their pro cards or got their pro card, and they're from New York and they're from Jersey, and everybody's like, holy shit. And they knew them like from another gym or so on and so forth. Because back then it was very difficult. I think it was even more difficult in the UK to get your pro card. But it was very, very difficult to get your pro card. And I said I wanted every one of those guys on my channel. One of them was Jason Arns, Vinny Galante, Dave Palumbo, and Thackeray. Those are the four big names floating around that were like, in the gym, people talking about them, that, Dave is going for his nationals. He can't seem to turn pro, or Vinny can't seem to do it. Arns just turned pro, or Thackeray turned pro. Holy shit. So I wanted all those guys on my channel, and I actually told them, I don't think they realized that I think they just think that they're bodybuilders. I don't think they realized how they influence you, because when I got them on, I was on a high. I was like, holy shit, I actually just interviewed Dave Palumbo. Now me, Jason Arns are actually friends. We went out to dinner with the wives this weekend. He does the show at MD with me, Same thing with Vinny and Thackeray. But do you think that they realize it? Because I don't think the majority of them realize it. Maybe guys like Jay Cutler, maybe the guys that are a lot more aware, a lot more grounded, but I don't think the majority of them realize that how influential they are with guys like us.
Well, I've made a point of speaking to them either on when I've had them on Global Muscle or on whatever, different shows or whatever, or I've told them face to face. I've made a point of saying to them, like I saw Kevin Levrone at the, I will say hello to Kevin because he remembers me. I kidnapped him at the 2010 Olympia. I don't know if you heard about that. Threw him in a limo, and because I just literally, I pulled up a limo, Ron Harris and the rest of the MD team, where there was a load of us. And then I just opened the door and I said, guys, look who I've got. And I literally threw Kevin in. And, but I make a point, because it pops up in my head, and I'll say, like, I saw Kevin again at the Arnold Classic at the Expo. And I did a little video, and I said, Kevin, I've actually got it on my phone, actually. I could probably find it. And I said, Kevin, did you realize, if it wasn't for you, mate, I might not be stood here right now. Because maybe I wouldn't have took that path. I said, and I want you to know, like, how much influence and how much you can change people's lives for the positive. And by, like, I follow a lot of Jordan Peterson, and he's very much on encouragement.
Absolutely.
Encouraging young men. Like, all people need sometimes is just a little bit of encouragement, a little bit of a nudge, a bit of, like, I've got belief in you. I believe that you can do this.
Right.
You know, and it can just start them on a journey that could put them on a good path in life, you know, make them follow their dreams like I did. You know, I wanted to do this. I was from this, you know, this kind of dull, boring town in Wales. And you know, I was itching to get out, and I knew there was more for me, you know, in this bigger world out there. And I knew that I just wanted to follow what I wanted to do. And you know, I do the show with Ronnie Coleman.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, I do a show called Nothing But a Podcast. I've been doing it with Ronnie since 2019. If you look on his channel.
Oh, okay. Very cool, man.
That's been running, since August 2019 we started it. I just did one. I did our first one face-to-face out in Vegas at the Olympia. We managed to get, because I finished the wrap-up with Jose and Ron. And I said, Ron, can I just, Ronnie's trying to get hold of me. He wants to do a podcast in person. We've got the video crew. And he said, yeah. He says, we're done now until to the night on the Friday, I think it was. So I went and we did like a face-to-face podcast. It's had like 185,000 views already. And
that's what's great when you could get somebody like that, man, because, you know, half the work is like, look, you know, coming from me, you know, I'm a sewer worker in New York City and I'm a fan. And like, you know, if I get 1,000 views on my video, I'm like, oh, that's so amazing. Right. But when you got somebody like, you know, Ronnie with you, man, that you don't even have to work hard. It's Ronnie Coleman.
Because like I did one and literally because sometimes we've done it with guests. I got him and Jay together. I did one with him and Chris Cormier, because I reach out to them and Ronnie gives me the time and I'll say, Jay, can you come on at this time? And Ronnie be like, yeah, for Ronnie. Chad Nichols, I got the first time I got them on together. And then we split it up into 3 or 4 episodes, and I put like loads up because I do the editing. I'll do some nice edits. I've done him with Milos. That was a funny one. Because he said Milos couldn't cope when Ronnie said Dexter was average. Milos went,
compared to him, yeah.
So anyway, so Milos went, well, what? Because Milos is like, you know, Ronnie the king, you know, everyone's so respectful. Anyway, Ronnie, no, you can't say Dexter's average. He says, yeah, well, he only won 1 Olympia.
yeah, right. Compared to, yeah, right. It's
17 men in history, and Ronnie's like, and Ronnie's just there going, he's average, you know.
Yeah, that's like, but you know, you got, you know, where it's coming from. It's like Muhammad Ali saying Evander Holyfield's just a decent fighter, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's levels. Like I said, John, there's levels to this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ronnie can say it and he doesn't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? And he means it, you know. But he's not disrespecting Dexter, but you know, even Dexter probably go, yeah, compared to this guy, I'm average, you know.
Yeah, but there are certain people in this world that could say whatever they want, and for some reason they can get away with it. And Ronnie's one of them. You know, there's a few of them. Shaquille O'Neal's another guy. You know, it's just they could just say whatever they want and they just kind of get away with it. You know who else was like that? God rest his soul, Luke Sandow. He could have said whatever he wanted. People still loved him. People still loved them. It didn't matter, you know. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I spoke to Luke because I was good friends with Luke. In fact, I tell you what, a post came up on my thing today, and I screenshotted it because I was going to put it on. And it was a text exchange between me and him. Where is it? Oh, it's somewhere. Where is it? I can't find it. Yeah, I did screenshot it.
Yeah, that was a sad state because
horrible.
He had the potential of going all the way and being Mr. Olympia. He was flawless. He just needed a little bit more maturity. That's all it was. The guy was flawless. He had no flaws in his physique, except that maybe a little bit of muscle maturity. Another year or two, he would have been clearly in the top 5 and maybe really, you know, going after the win in the Olympia. But
did you ever? I mean, I don't know if you ever saw. I did an interview at the Arnold on the 2019, and I did the meet the athletes on the Thursday. And I did one with Luke, and because me and Luke I would class us as friends. We were definitely friends. We spoke regularly, and I liked his sense of humor. And he could trust me with some, you know, we have a little bit of bitching session or something we found funny that we wouldn't want put out there, you know. You know, and it's like, oh, you know, it wouldn't be a good look, but it's, you know, you got good intent, really. You're just kind of just ripping on people.
Yeah.
And I said, I forgot what I was going to say.
You said something with Luke Sandow, and you guys were
brain's gone dead.
That's all right. It happens to me all the time. Don't worry.
No.
That's why I got a panel of 5 people, so I don't have to worry when my brain goes dead.
No. So anyway, at the show, I said, so then, Luke, what's the goal here then? And he went, top 5. And I went, and you can see my face. And I'm going, really? Top 5? Really? Top 5? Cedric?
Mm-hmm.
And, and the Brandon and Whitney says, yeah, top 5. He says, and I was like, well, good luck with that, mate.
Yeah.
And people were like, really, like, because I just couldn't hide it. And I was like, is he kidding? This is a really, really competitive Arnold Classic. And, he came like last the other year, He ended up getting 3rd.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that was, he just had, he was flawless, and he was able, and it was just unfortunate. And people loved him. And they found out what he was really like behind the scenes with Fouad on his podcast, and that really increased his popularity. It's kind of the same way with Nick Walker, where people see what a great guy is behind the scenes, and it really increases his popularity, and so on and so forth. He's a very likable person, and Luke was the same way. He was a very likable guy, and my wife used to love to watch with me, and she has no clue about, what I mean. And she just absolutely loved it.
Well, my girlfriend Lauren now, because we met because I did the tours. I did one with Phil Heath. I did a Globe Muscle Pro Tour, and then Dan Solomon said, "Why don't we make it the Olympia All-Star Tour?" So I did tour with Brandon Curry in 2020, and I did 3 countries in 7 days, like a seminar tour. Flew him over from America, and I did a seminar at a gym down in London called Muscle Works in Orpington. That's where Luke Stander used to train, and I used to do, basically that's where Luke used to train. And Lauren, my girlfriend, before we started dating and she moved up, she said, some of the guys in there, because she's a beautiful bikini girl, she competes, and guys like in those kinds of hardcore gyms, they can be a little bit slimy and
intimidating,
a little bit, and she says no, Luke was always a perfect gentleman, and he was always, I always felt very, very not safe, but very okay around him, whereas some of the other guys are a little bit touchy-feely or a bit in your personal space and a bit like,
I hate that with a passion. You have no idea how much I hate it. It's like I have 3 nieces. I don't have any children, but I have 3 nieces, and they're all in their early 20s to late 20s. And I see these young girls, and once in a while there's a guy who gets in their personal space, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. If that was one of my nieces, I would hit this guy with a fucking barbell. I just, I mean, I don't know, there's a way to go about things, and you have to understand, if you're 50 something years old, and you just want to have a conversation, there's a way to go about it. But to get in somebody's personal space, or it's just creepy, and you don't want to, be portrayed as that person. You know what I mean? I hate that shit with a passion.
I do. And if you're a bodybuilder, it can be quite intimidating for like a
Absolutely.
small lady. Do you know what I mean? Especially in a gym where they're literally there to train, and maybe they do train a little bit of a slightly skimpy outfit. And you know what, guys? I mean, guys are a little bit caveman in gyms sometimes. They're a bit like, woman. They're in this kind of primal state of strength and training.
Oh, absolutely.
They're eyeballing each other, and it's all about testosterone, and and they're all kind of like wanting to lift as heavy and lift as and be the strongest guy in the gym. And then when they see the woman, it's like they lose all.
Yeah. And then, but then, let's be fair. You got the opposite, where the girls are just there for attention, and we've seen it on social media. I think there was that one girl that took her top off. And then the guy behind her looked, and she's like, "Oh, do you want something?" And he's like, "What? Yeah." But it's unfortunate. But just a couple more questions, Giles, and I'm gonna let you go, man.
Just getting started, man.
Yeah. No, you know what the problem is with me is I double book. I don't realize I get home from work. If I'm working overtime, I get home from work at 4:00. My calendar is here. And if I don't, I get people. I'm like, yeah, come on Monday night, whatever, February, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then I realize, oh shit, I got to film this one Monday night. I got to film that. So I got 3. I got you. I'd film Anabolic Academy with Danny Broadhurst and Fackery and then I got to interview Paul Lazan tonight too. So I got to run to the gym after we're done. But when Dorian broke out into the UK, how did that change bodybuilding in the UK? And did it? I would assume it did.
Completely.
Yeah. So why don't you go into that a little bit?
Well, think about it. I started following in 1990, and I remember I got a copy of the Pumping Press, which was, I don't know if you ever heard of that, Pete McGough's. He did like a newspaper. And that's what got in the attention of Joe Weider, because he used to send copies out all over the world to all these publishers. And Joe Weider saw this. because this was because newspapers you can print very fast. You can print out, you can, like a magazine, you have to book weeks in advance. And he did, this was back in after the 1991 Olympia. I think it was something like a week at the British Grand Prix in 1991, which was like a week or less than 2 weeks after the Olympia. There was people in the audience reading a 16-20-page Olympia report in the magazine, written photographs, layouts. So this got the attention of. So anyway, basically, I got the first copy. I'd just done legs in Hereford, where it was the place I was born. I had to get an hour bus ride because I had no gym in my town. So for 10 years, I was having to travel like an hour. I used to do my arms in my bedroom, but till I was 23. Seriously, till I was 23.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got the mag, and basically on the front cover, the first issue was when he got second to Momo Benaziza at the Champions,
Champions, sure.
That was just, and then the second Olympia that I followed was that one where he came second to Lee Haney, and I mean, bodybuilding did it really. I mean, in fact, it changed things so much. When he went, there was a real void. There was like, okay, who's next? Ernie Taylor, J.D. Dewadu, Charles Claremont. Charles Claremont was done in '97 when Dorian retired as well. His career was only 4 years, and we were looking. I mean, Flex Lewis is probably the next big Brit that kind of. But then he moved to America and was kind of over there doing his own thing. It was huge. I mean, for me as a fan following it, it was huge. And the thing is, Dorian was much of a mystery to us British fans as he was to the American fans.
Really?
Yeah, because I knew Kerry Kays and I knew certain people that knew him, like Pete McGough and stuff like that. Well, I didn't really know them then. I became friends with them. But, the man was a mystery because he trained in this dungeon when the gym was shut. Then he'd open the gym and, I probably didn't go to the original Temple gym. It was an absolute shithole.
Yeah, I've heard. I've never been there, obviously.
It was disgusting. I mean, I remember filming there for MD, and I was filming. Dorian was in there training, and who was I filming? I did a load of videos, Ant Bales and Leroy, and all these ones. And I did several videos in a row, and I almost keeled over in there because there was no air. And I was just filming. I wasn't training.
Yeah.
So light. It was just like, and you're in this smelly bloody dungeon gym with this.
There were a lot of gyms back then like that, before corporations took over and started making,
Quite American,
there were a lot of gyms. I don't know if it's the same in the UK. I probably assume that it is, but in the United States, there was. Before like the mid to late 90s, every gym was like that because it was like the guy from the neighborhood that was a bodybuilder or powerlifter and opened his own gym. And then once the Gold's gym started exploding and, and the retros and the LA Fitnesses and everybody started going to the nicer gyms, those small gyms started closing down. They were a thing of the past. There's still here and there. Is Temple still open?
No, in fact, I'll tell a funny story. Actually, there's a recent story. No, because the landlord wanted the building back, so they took.
Oh, that sucks.
Dorian's son. What's his son's name? What's his name now? Well, his son bought all the equipment because obviously Dorian's out in Spain, and then opened up the second gym, but it didn't really work because it wasn't. Even though it was the equipment, it wasn't the gym, so people didn't really come. Oh, let's go train at Temple. They'll travel all the way, or people come from abroad. They didn't really want to go to this new one because it wasn't Temple. So, but recently they see there's a gym franchise. I think they've got about 6, 7, 8 of these really nice gyms run by called Ultraflex, and they've Charlie Marden, the owner. He's from actually around this way. He opened the first one in Leeds, and now there's like Ant Bales has got one, Cuba Sealand's got one, and they're like a franchise. They're kind of like a franchise. You walk in and it's an Ultraflex, all the red and black. Charlie put a video up a few days ago, and he said, "Look, I bought all Temple Gym, the original Temple Gym equipment." And I'm gonna divide it up amongst all the Ultraflex. We're gonna refurbish it. We're gonna make sure it's functional. It's not gonna break on us. And I'm gonna decide like now where each piece is gonna go. Because I knew Ant Bale because he's a big Dorian Yates fan, and he trains with Leroy now as well. In fact, I was messaging him today about it because he sent me a video of Leroy sat next to Jay Cutler at Body Power back in 2014, I think it was. And Leroy was shouting for him like he did for Dorian. And he sent me a little video. I'll send you the clip. I'll forward it to you. It's amazing. And then Jay's laughing because he's watching Leroy going, my God, this is like deja vu, Nice memories. But yeah, so that was so that equipment is now going to be, in the gym. But my gym, I tell you what, I took Samson there last year because Samson drove up to do an episode of Globe Muscle. I put him in a hotel, same hotel I put Phil Heath, Brandon Curry, Kamal, Patrick Tour. Who else did I put there? Anyway, it's beautiful 17th century place. And my gym, and there's these new owners have taken over, and it's got like the hardcore feel, but they've really started adding in some nice new pieces, and it's not, that word hasn't quite caught on yet, so it's not mega busy. So on like a Friday night, I've got this amazing gym, 4-minute drive from my house.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely I'm loving it, because my training now is going up, because did you hear about last year about what happened to me?
No.
Yeah, I had a heart attack last year.
Really?
Yeah, I was emceeing my first Pro League show.
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
I was supposed to do one in Cyprus, and then it got the pandemic and everything, because I wanted to MC, because I'd MC'd a couple of non-IFBB shows, and I got an opportunity to do one for Terek and Tamer, the muscle contest, in Ireland. 20 minutes in, I had a massive heart attack on stage.
Oh man!
At the show, as the 212s are walking on stage, I'm like, ugh.
Wow, man! I'm sorry to hear that, but thank God you're all right.
Yeah, so I had to have this. I had to have a
open heart surgery.
Yeah, I had triple bypass.
Oh man, that fucking sucks.
I got this guy here. They took veins from my leg and my arm, and
wow.
So I crashed down in weight last summer. Last summer, if you notice, there was no global last summer.
Wow.
MD supported me. They kept me. They carried on supporting me whilst I wasn't working and recovering.
Really?
I was fucked, mate. I mean, they brought me home in a wheelchair. I was only a few months ago.
Oh man, so, well, I'm glad you're doing better, man. Because I hate to hear that, man. It sucks.
Triple bypass. 45.
Yeah, actually, Dave Palumbo just did a show yesterday saying he has to have open heart surgery.
Oh,
yeah. Sorry to hear that, man. But I'm glad that you're doing much better and you're back in action. So I'm
training really hard now, and I'm only on 125 milligram of enanthate, and because I'm diabetic as well. That's why I stopped competing, because I found out I was diabetic. And we've tried metformin again, because before it just gave me the shits. So it didn't really work. So I tried it again now, and mate, my body is just, it's like I feel like I'm on like a proper gear course and proper like
right.
My body is changing daily at the moment. My
good.
Energy levels have exploded. I mean, Christmas I was dead. I was a complete zombie at Christmas, but now
as you get older, I guess you kind of know what works for you. It's like right now, I just use growth and test now. That's it. Well, the growth I'll use like 4 units a day, and from what I have, it's pretty damn good. And the test I'll do like 600 milligrams a week or something like that. Nothing crazy, because I'm 46. I don't. What'd you say?
I'm 46.
Oh, okay. I'm 46. I'm not looking to compete. I kind of just want to stay in shape and so on and so forth. And there's no reason to take all these orals and anabolics anymore or anything like that and blah, blah, blah. But, I always want something to make me feel good at the gym and to stay in shape and so on and so forth. So I'm going to ask you one more question, but okay. I'm going to put you on the spot because you're from the UK and you might have a biased opinion. 1997. Do you think Dorian should have won that Olympia?
Oh, you know what? I came up last night with Milos. Last night, and he said, Giles, I know you disagree with me.
Yeah.
I wasn't a NASA fan.
Nobody was. He was a dick.
Yeah, I know he was a bit of a dick. Rest in
God
peace.
Rest his soul, but he was a dick. I mean,
I know. From the front and the side, he was phenomenal. Because I saw him at that year's British Grand Prix. I saw him at the 96. In fact, 96, he could have took Dorian, because Dorian messed up on diuretics, and he came out and he dropped down to about 240-ish. And NASA just seemed to get big. In fact, I've got slide pictures that I took where if you weren't a bodybuilding fan, you just saw him. And who's the little guy next to the big guy?
Right.
Gillette and NASA were like fucking huge. And Dorian was just. But Dorian he got the condition. It's tricky because I just, for NASA from the back, that was where he lost it. Those back shots, and also his delts were blurry and there was no back going on. There was no lower lats. There was no, around the scapula, there was no detail. There was no.
But you can make the same argument from the front with Dorian though.
Yeah, I know. I
know?
mean, the thing is, you could say, do you know what? I tell you what. I've got a picture over there of Kevin Navarone at the 1997 British Grand Prix, and Wayne D'Amelio said it when he came out at the start. He came out on the mic, and he said, if Kevin Navarone had looked like he did on the first day, because that was the first year that they had the Olympia over 2 days, not one.
Mm-hmm.
He said if Kevin had looked like he did on the first day, like he did on the second day, he would have won, and he was 4th place. And I'm telling you, if Kevin had looked like he did at the British Grand Prix, he would have beat all of them. He would have won that Olympia like by a mile.
Yeah.
So, I mean, really, in terms of completeness, you could argue that Sean Ray should have won it because.
Oh, yeah. But what sucks about those guys is that when Dorian retired, guys like Nasser, Kevin, Sean Ray, they were like, all right, this is our year. We could fucking win this.
Nope.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Ronnie Coleman comes out of fucking nowhere and kills everybody's dreams. Yeah. That was it. Do you know what kind of feeling that has to be? If I ever get a guy like that on, you know what? I did interview Branch. I did ask him, actually. I did ask him. The feeling of being number 2 and never getting to number 1, you're that fucking close. And I did ask Branch, but when I think of number 2 guys that are almost that close, I think of like a Sean Ray, a Kevin Levrone, a Nasser, or a Kai Green, you know. But Branch was like, it was the worst feeling in the world. It sucked. He goes, I'd rather be in dead last than come in second. Yeah.
That's what I've heard more than once, because if you're 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, then you know you're a legit top 6 guy. But if you're number 2, you're the second best. There is somebody out there that has whooped your ass every single time. I mean, imagine poor Flex Wheeler. I mean, he had Dorian to contend with, and then if he had brought what he did at the Arnold Classic once to the Olympia, maybe then, because Dorian got, 94, 97, he was definitely off his game. But imagine if, and then Ronnie decides, just like he said, comes from nowhere. He was 9th place the year before.
Yeah.
But I love Ronnie.
Losing, coming in second once has to suck. But when you're like Kai Green and like you just can't beat Phil Heath for whatever 4 years in a row, it's like, fuck, I can't fucking beat this guy. I can win every other show. I mean, this guy, and you could tell, I don't know if he would tell the truth. I never had a chance to interview him, but you could tell it got to him, because that one year where he like really was pushing the hair and shoved him on stage and everything, you could tell it got to him. You know what I mean? You could fucking tell it got to him. But listen, man, it is what it is. Bodybuilding's like that, and then only recently has the Olympia has been able to have different champions every year. But for a long time, it was one guy dominating for years, but I like, I know I'm obviously very partial to our generation, but the truth of them is I'm enjoying it more now because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't know, like nobody thought Ramey was going to drop down to 5th, and 5th was a gift. I thought
I had him 6th.
I thought Samson should have beat him.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have like and then I will let you go. I just want to tell you this. I have I'm a huge fan of Samson because he was the first elite bodybuilder that ever came on my podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was the first guy. And what was funny, it was that he was also the first guy who I interviewed overseas. And I thought it was reverse. I thought I was 5 hours ahead of him.
Oh no!
So I remember I was driving home from the gym and he texted me. He's like, "Are we doing this or what?" And I went, "Whoa, what do you mean?" And then I was like, "Oh shit, dude! I totally forgot." He goes, "Don't worry about it." And we did it the next week. And he was nice enough to come back the next week and do it. And
sorry to interrupt, but I tell you what. You've obviously interviewed quite a few now. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if every single athlete was as easy and as amazing to interview, and just thing is, it's not just when they're on screen and they know people are watching, it's when you're messaging them before and you mess up the time or something goes wrong and you go, "Oh wait, can you put," and they're really good about it and they're cool and they're calm and they're not making you feel like shit, Samson. And every single time I have Samson, because I had him on last week, every time I got Samson on, I said to him, mate, every single interview, probably maybe over a dozen times, every single time is better. He gives more, he opens up more. Yeah. He's so you feel the positive energy off Samson.
Yeah.
You know, because you feel like this guy is just. I mean, I remember after you got sick at the Olympia, he was out in the lobby, and I went up and I hugged him, and then I just stood back and just watched, and you could see I was like, it was rubbing off on me, you know. I was like, wow.
Yeah, and I don't know him very well. I just know him from the times I interviewed him, and I couldn't agree more, man. He really is a super nice guy. And you're right. There have been times, and I obviously won't mention any names. There've been times I've interviewed bodybuilders, and it's a hassle because their heads are bigger than their bodies. You know, they just have this. They think they walk on water, and it's like, you know.
I have a famous. Well, I say it's famous. I have a GFY list.
A GFY list? What does that mean?
What do you think it stands for?
Get the fuck out of here. Go fuck yourself. Gotcha. Yeah.
I have amber and I have red. Now you can, if you get on amber, you've got the opportunity on what you do next to get off it. But if you're on red, that's it. You're blacklisted for life.
Oh, there's purgatory.
Yeah, that's it. You're not coming back from hell. That's it. You're done.
Yeah. Listen, I get it, man.
You're over. You are done. Get out of here.
Giles, I just want to thank you very much, man. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. You know, I'm hoping that one day I become like you or Ron or Dave Palumbo, one of those big guys that are interviewing people. So thank you very much, brother. And I appreciate it. And we'll definitely do it again. Yeah,
anytime, mate. I mean, I love all these things. I love it, you know, and hopefully I get my mic fixed as well. So, yeah, anytime, mate. Just let me know. You got my number now. So, yeah, I've enjoyed this. And I'm glad, like I said, great to have you on board with MD and keep up the good work, mate.
Yeah.
Because it's all a learning curve, and you'll just get better and better and better as you go along, you know, and you'll find your style, and you'll just evolve from there. And like I said, just don't take any shit from these guys as well. Let them know the boundaries, you know, be polite, be respectful, but don't take any shit from any of them, mate. That's my advice.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys that I kept their messages, and they're in my phone.
Did you?
There's a couple of guys I kept their messages, and I'm like, you son of a bitch. One day I'm gonna fucking
keep it up your sleeve. Keep it up your sleeve.
Yeah, right.
And also keep it, like I said, keep it positive, like you do. And like I said, and thing is that you'll get the word spread, because this industry's smaller than you think. And if you're a dick, or you're a good person, word spreads either way. So, you know, and right. I think a lot of it you get back what you give out. So I think if you give in the spirit of reciprocation, of respect, giving respect, that you get it back. I think 99 times out of 100 you will get that. So
I agree. Thank you that's great positive words to live by. Thank you very much, sir. And we'll definitely do it again.
Anytime, mate. Anytime.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, mate. Take care.